Chantel here with Two Sisters Homesteading.
So this is my favorite sourdough recipe, and it's actually adapted from a couple of different recipes that I use that I like. And I'm going to start with 1 cup of sourdough starter. Now I like to use starter that I have fed within like the last 12 hours. I fed this last night. I feed my starter at night. So here we go. I'm going to put that right in. And then we're also going to add a 1/2 cup of just water. We have filtered tap. If you don't have filtered tap, you could use your water from your fridge. And I'm just going to use it in the same cup as my starter there because I'm going to try to get more of that starter out of the mixing cup. I'm going to add an egg, 2 full teaspoons of salt. I'm a French girl. I like salty bread. So I go for 2 full teaspoons. A lot of bread recipes call for less than that, but I think that they're kind of flavorless. So 2 full teaspoons, that's 1/2, 1, 1/2, 2. And then I'm going to do a tablespoon of olive oil. So I've got my olive oil here, and I'm going to do a full tablespoon. Again, this is a 1/2 tablespoon, so I'm going to fill it up twice. And then I'm going to do a 1.5 tablespoons of honey. I've got some raw local honey here, and so I'm going to do a 1.5 tablespoons, and the olive oil is going to help that come out nice and easy. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little premix before I start adding flour. Let that whip up a little bit. I like to turn my mixture on low here and just slowly incorporate the flour. I have 3 full cups of flour that I'm going to add in now. And I use bread flour because if I'm making a bread, it makes my bread a little fluffier and a little nicer. And then the next real key of a really good, nice bread is to let it knead for long enough. So I'm going to turn this up a notch, and I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes for this to knead for 10 full minutes. Alexa, set timer for 10 minutes. Timer just went off. I've just turned off my mixer, and we're going to go ahead and pull the bread off the paddle here. And I'm going to get all the dough off the edges. All right, we're going to go ahead and release our bowl, and you can see here that the dough is a decent size. And if I were doing this not in a rush and I had not forgotten to make bread until last minute, I would normally let this proof at room temperature in my upper oven, not turned on, for like 5 hours. But I did forget to make bread, so I'm going to plop it right back down in this bowl. So you can see that it's nice, round and smooth on top. And because I do have a proof setting on my oven, I'm going to cover this with foil so it doesn't dry out on top. And I'm going to put it in my oven on the proof setting, and I'm going to check on it in about an hour. If you don't have a proof setting on your oven, then you're going to want to do it at room temperature, covered with saran wrap, again, to keep that moisture in. I generally like saran wrap better because I can see how it's rising without messing with it. But on the proof setting in the oven, of course, we're going to use foil. And in it goes. Well, I checked the bread after 1 hour, and it was just not risen enough. So I put it back in for another hour, and it's ready to go. And after 2 hours on proof setting. So again, without proof setting, I usually let this double in size, which takes 5 to 6 hours. But on the proof setting, it happened in 2. So if you have that setting on your oven, it's a lovely thing. And this is the point where you do kind of your second knead on the bread. It's really soft and fluffy like at this point. It's not super thick and doughy like it was before. And my second knead is usually just like this. It's just me turning the dough in my hands. If I have something that I want to add into the bread, this is when I do it. I love to pre-roast some garlic while my bread is proofing and get that into the dough. Getting a little bit more out of the bottom of the bowl here. And get that into the dough. Sometimes I'll just douse this with some herbes de Provence. I love that seasoning, and I'll just mix that in and knead it into the dough. Today I'm just going to do a basic bread because I just want a basic loaf right now. If I do additives, for some reason I like to do it in a Dutch oven. I have a little Dutch oven that I like to cook them in just because I like the shape of a good crusty herb bread or garlic bread for dipping in sauce or whatever pasta I'm going to do it with. This I'm making more like a sandwich bread, so I'm just going to do it in a loaf pan. I have olive oil sprayed my loaf pan here, and so I'm just going to keep kneading this and turning it a couple more times, and then I'm going to kind of start to make it into a loaf, and I always put it seam side down so that the pretty unseamed side is on top. And I'm going to put this back in the oven again. If I didn't have the proof setting, this would be 1 to 2 hours until it comes up over the top of the pan just slightly. With the proof setting, it's probably going to be 30-45 minutes, but we're going to get it in just like that. And I want this to come up over the top so you're going to be able to see it just looking at it, coming up over the top just ever so slightly. And so I'm going to put that back in the oven until that happens. So there it is in the oven. I just put it in. This proof setting keeps the light on in the oven all the time so I can see it as it rises and know when it's time to start baking. You can see the bread is risen to the top of the pan. It is ready to bake. I have a double oven, so I'm just going to pull it out of one and stick it into my bottom oven, which is already preheated. If I had added a head of roasted garlic or herbes de Provence, at this time I would probably sprinkle the top with some olive oil, drizzle the top with some olive oil, and sprinkle with some roasted garlic or some toasted garlic and coarse salt, or if I had done herbes de Provence, with some herbes de Provence and coarse salt, and bake. I'm just throwing it in just like this, and it's going in here at 350 for 30 minutes.
It's out of the oven and sliced, ready for toasting or sandwiches, and ready to enjoy.